6 Minutes Season 5. The Season of Unknowingness. The final chapter of the 6-minute sequel.
There are kids in this world who are different. Special.
One of them found us.
And became family.
But her time ran out. And now, that girl is missing.
In this episode, I'll be breaking down the latest episode, 6 Minutes Season 5, Piece by Piece. We're here today talking about episode 17 of 6 Minutes Season 5, and, I quite enjoyed this episode. I thought, James was great again. I think he's been on kind of a roll over the past few episodes of just really him being himself, and, especially him and Monica here, just the fact that, they get even closer, it seems, with every episode, and, how their bond has carried through all the seasons, I think is so great. And, I have to say, I loved Penn. Even though we don't even really hear from him, just, kind of what he's doing and, the stakes of everything here, it feels super surreal and big and large, and there's a lot to look forward to, I think, and a lot that this episode sets up really, really well. And, I think it'll be really interesting to just see where everything goes from here.
This could be our way back into our timeline. My way back to Brinley.
That is not happening. I am not letting you go anywhere.
For holiday, you could see your family again.
Not if that means that you would see them too.
Gosh, I love this clip in the sense that, it really shows Holiday's nature here, in the sense that she's willing to risk a lot and sacrifice a lot to help Brinley and help this friend that she's become so close to, right? Originally they were frenemies, right? But, it's become a lot more than that, because she really does care about Brinley, like we've seen in Season 5. And, I think there's a lot of questions to be asked. I love Jude here and just trying to tempt Holiday into, not saving her friend, right? She has this ultimatum of like, am I going to go off and be with my family, or am I going to sacrifice myself for Brinley? And, I have to say, I think it's very characteristic of Holiday. Just the fact that, she always puts others before herself, right?
Is that
It opens.
me? Do I know you?
I see you, Sam.
All the time we wasted reading.
So yeah, I love you.
He's lucky to have a kid like you.
Timelines, realities.
Dude,
Timelines,
get
realities.
away from me!
Timelines, realities.
But none of that happened.
We've seen this a little bit in Season 5 of, like, Brinley having these flashbacks, and yet she's not sure whether or not to trust them or not. Cyrus is a big part of this. I think it's very important because it shows Cyrus was a big part of Brinley's life, and so the fact that, she kind of doesn't know that much about Cyrus in this new 2025, and yet, it seems like, according to this portal, he's very important. But I also love just the portal here, and in the music, I think it works really, really well. And, kind of having Out of Time come in, and just all of these experiences kind of flood Brinley, and, have her second guessing herself. Did this happen? Did this not happen? And I think it'll be interesting to see if she finds out more about that.
Do you live here?
In the coziest of metallic boxes right down the hall.
What about your parents?
Your guess is as good as mine. It's fine. Great, really. I may not have a mom and dad, but I have training instructors, doctors, bosses.
Gosh, I think this is so interesting, having that reveal very similar to season 1, and it feels like a very full circle moment, right? It was very hard for Cyrus when he first learned the truth about, kind of who Casey was, and this girl that he got so close to is now kind of the enemy. And I feel it here too. Even though it's kind of in a different sort of way, right? Originally, Casey was Cyrus's first love, and now we have kind of a friend dynamic here, and yet it still hits so hard. And I love, kind of the reveal of like the metallic boxes, and yet, Casey doesn't seem too appalled by that, right? She grew up in Whittier Corp, and Whittier Corp was the only thing Casey's ever known, and so it really wasn't all that bad for her, the fact that, she's lived this life in Whittier.
So, being my friend, my lab partner...
No, that was the best part. For the first time in my life, I felt like more than just a number and an ability.
Ability? Casey, my dad said that the fire at our house was electrical. Was that you?
Alert!
I think that was such an interesting and abrupt way to end such a heartfelt conversation, right? We have something to where Cyrus is kind of, learning a lot about Casey's life so immediately, so abruptly, and yet, now we have the alarm going off, and that sets up a whole new problem. So just creating more mess, I think, writing-wise, I think it works really, really well. But I have to say, I love Casey talking about Cyrus in such an honest, sort of way, right? They're lab partners, and they're more than that, they're friends. Overall, Casey really just getting to, appreciate Cyrus. I think it's so full circle, and I love it so much.
Did they teach you this in training?
Nah, it's all on a prank show. Time to fill her up, but only halfway.
Okay, I can use this funnel.
That'll do.
This is kind of fun. Does that make me weird?
I'd say being married to me is what makes you weird.
Gosh, a slime gun or a slime launcher, I think it's so fun, and I can really visualize it in my head of just the building of the slime cannon, and it feels like a YouTube tutorial. I think it's so well done. But, this goes back to what I was talking about in the intro of, like, James is being himself. He's being quirky, and this has been really a great, run for James over the past few episodes of, like, him really, being full-on dad, the dad jokes. I think, he really lays them on hard, but I think it's so perfect, and, it really speaks to the character that is James. And, I love the distraction of the slime cannon here, and, like, it fits into the plot, but at the same time, we also have that bonding of James and Monica, and, it's great. It's carried through all the seasons.
And since you left him behind in the ice tunnel, someone had to help.
Brinley, what's going on the other side of that glass? Is that?
That kid in there opened a portal, a big one.
That's what he does.
Is that Penn?
Gosh, I love the conflict here and the tension, because we can hear Casey coming after Brinley, and, it speaks volumes, right? And this always reminds me of the scene from season 2 when they're trapped in that pit on Neverland together. Casey and Brinley especially are going back and forth, and Cyrus is kind of caught in the middle of that. It feels very similar to what we're seeing here of, like, maybe Cyrus is uncomfortable, I think he, of course, appreciates Casey sticking up for him, but I really enjoy this. I love kind of them, like I said, going back and forth, but I think, it's really interesting, and I'm excited to see kind of how, they get closer to Penn and, whether a friendship is formed. But yeah, absolutely, so well done.
I am Madame Fortuna, the seer with all the...
Aren't you a little young?
Like 40 years too young?
Who dares question? Are you serious? You two?
Gosh, this is such a perfect cliffhanger. I love it so much. I love, Katie being Madame Fortuna, and, I didn't really hear it in her voice, right? When she enters the scene, it doesn't immediately sound like Katie. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review. Until next time, this is Landon saying peace, love, and time travel.